Hello and welcome to the Covert Nerd Podcast. I really appreciate the time that you give me. It means a lot. And today we'll be discussing, are you being authentic? Then the fun you can have with your Alexa. Also a great movie podcast that you can use to impress your friends with little known facts. And finally, a comic book that will really make you wonder. This episode's jam-packed, so let's get started. Today, you are you. That is truer than true. There was no one alive who was youer than you. Dr. Seuss. Are you being authentic? Do you act or speak in a totally different way when certain people are around you? Now, I don't mean you stop swearing when your 7-year-old kid is around. What I mean is, do you change your personality based on who's around you? For example, I'm in business-to-business sales. I've seen many other sales reps over the years really turn on the charm to the point that it makes you nauseous. You know who I'm talking about. They overpromise, they underdeliver. I try to do the opposite. I underpromise and overdeliver. I try not to promise something I can't keep. I'm sure it cost me some sales, but at least in the end, I can say I was honest and I wasn't being fake. Now, I should preface this with the fact that I'm not perfect at this all the time. I'm human. However, I'm more mindful about this than I was maybe 10 years ago about being genuine. As the saying goes, with age comes wisdom, hopefully. Now, this is only my opinion. If you're already being authentic, great. I just wanted to bring the awareness of this subject for those of us who need a reminder. Some other examples of this is a podcast I listen to where the host really turns on the radio voice. You know that radio voice. You're listening to KXFOR Hard Rock. That's probably a horrible impersonation, but you know what I'm talking about. I later heard this same host in an interview for another podcast, and his radio voice was nowhere to be heard. Why? I mean, I know why, but why not be honest with your audience on or off the mic? I could tell when I first listened to this guy on his podcast, the radio voice was fake. It was a show. The other interview that I heard him on just confirmed my suspicion. On that same note, I know another podcaster who never swears on his podcast, but yet their Twitter feed is full of curse words. Why the difference? I'm sure we can all agree. We don't like people who are fake. I do my best to give you, the audience, honesty and not to be fake. Based on the two previous examples, the voice you hear now in front of the mic is the same voice that you would hear off the mic. I rarely swear off the mic, and you will rarely hear me swear on the mic. That's just the way I am. Again, I try to be honest with you on and off the mic. The two aforementioned guys, the podcasters, they're successful, they're creative, they're doing great. But I wonder if they could take their popularity to the next level if they were more consistent in those two areas. Just a thought that came to me the other day, and I wanted to flesh it out with you in front of the microphone and get your 2 cents worth. Now, another example of this is a comic book artist that I'm sure you've heard of, Alan Moore. He is the guy behind the Watchmen comic book back in the 80s. He took over Rob Liefeld's Supreme title at Image Comics and said he would only do the Supreme title if he had full control. He wanted to be able to write the characters as he saw fit to be the best writer he could be. He needed that flexibility. He needed that flexibility to do whatever he wanted with the title. First, this sounds like he's being over-controlling, maybe, but he wanted to be able to be himself and not have someone force him to write a certain way and to do something with the character that wasn't him. Now, obviously, since he was a well-established artist and writer, like I said, with the Watchmen and other titles, he could demand that. He could ask for more than your struggling artist that's really young and doesn't have a lot of success behind his name. That's part of the benefit of being successful, but it's a good example of someone wanting to be themselves. How about Jamie Hyneman? He's the co-host of Mythbusters TV show. He's well known for being stoic all the time and not showing much emotion. They did an episode one time where they had people try to guess a person's emotions by only seeing their eyes. Before they gave the examples, the crew, Adam, Jamie, and others had to make faces depending on their emotions. They had to show their happy face, sad face, angry face, and so forth. With Jamie, though, his facial expressions were all the same. He was being him. Now, earlier on, when they approached him about doing the show initially, they needed to add a co-host with more emotion to appeal to the viewers, because they asked him at first if he could try to show more emotion, but he said, I can't act more emotional. That's just not who I am. He had to be him. Sometimes I see blatant dishonesty on a podcast about podcasting, for example. I heard a guy promoting a podcasting hosting service, and on the site they said they were the world's most popular podcasting hosting site. The host of the podcast show that had him on pointed this out and called him out on it. But the representative from the company said they needed to say something like that to attract customers, even though it was an outright lie. Wow. Now, whatever you create, be authentic. Even if it stinks, you can stand tall knowing that you tried and it's not an imitation of somebody else. Like the last episode, in episode 7, I talked about just starting. You can correct it later. But when you do start, make sure it's you. Obviously, there's going to be some changes going on with whatever you're creating. Just like with this podcast, I'll be making changes as we go along on this journey. But you can rest assured it's always going to be about nerdy stuff, because that's me. You're not going to get fantasy football statistics or an episode about the NBA finals. People that like that, that's fine. That's them, but it's just not me. And besides, people can tell fairly quickly if you're not being genuine or if you're a fake. Very few people can pull off a long-term deception like that. And I know this sounds cliche. Just be yourself. Now a little tech talk. I got an Amazon Dot several months ago, and we're definitely enjoying all the new things that you can do with it. I know. I'm probably about 2 years behind on something like this. But what I found was some interactive stories on there, like those old Choose Your Own Adventure books, where you listen to part of the story, and then towards the end, you get to pick an option. It's like those old audio dramas that you've heard from the 30s and 40s, but instead of it just being one way where you listen only, you get to interact with the characters and what happens to those characters. There's sound effects, voice actors who play the parts of the characters, and there's several to choose from. A couple of them that I found that were pretty cool was Wayne Investigations, where you try to find out who killed Bruce Wayne's parents, and The Magical Door, which is a mystery fantasy type story. There's more out there than those, I'm sure, but these are the ones that I found and have been playing with so far. I found it fascinating, even though, like I said, I'm a little bit behind the times. If you have an Alexa, I would encourage you to try these out. For example, you get to pick at the end of a little snippet of the story, do I go up the stairs? Do I go in the bedroom and open the closet door? I really found it fascinating, the interaction you can have. And I don't think, from what I've read, that to do these type of skills, Alexa skills that they're called, if you're a creator out there, it's not too terribly hard. I would encourage you to read up on it. Maybe it's something you want to create. Whoever owns the rights to those old Choose Your Own Adventure books, I don't think it would be terribly difficult to translate those old stories into this audio format. I love things like this. I think it's more engaging than TV, and my kids love it as well. It's podcast shout-out time, and this time I want to get local. If you like movies, you will love the Underground Inc. podcast. Ben, Anthony, and Billy are extremely knowledgeable about movies, and they're funny. The insight that they have about the movies they watch is just incredible. I'm always amazed at the trivial things I learn when listening to them comment while they're watching a movie. I've met Ben personally, and he's a great guy. Underground Inc. is simply an audio version of Mystery Science Theater 3000, except they watch popular movies instead of the B movies. So check them out. It's the Underground Inc. podcast. Now for some comic book commentary. I recently read through the comic book Why, the Last Man from Vertigo. It explores the idea of what would happen if all the male mammals on the planet suddenly died. It's written by Brian K. Vaughan and Pia Guerrara in 2002. Now, the reader finds out quickly there were two males who didn't die. The main character, Yorick, and his pet monkey. Yorick is a struggling escape artist who spends the entire series trying to get to his girlfriend who is in Australia, while he was in Washington, D.C. when the pandemic occurs. We follow his journey all along the way, and he finds out who or what may have caused this plague. Yorick is accompanied by Agent 355, who is his female bodyguard that follows him along the way on his journey. Being the last man, of course, he has to survive to continue the human race. The story gives insight to the chaos that the world is plunged into and the violent factions that start to develop, like the Militant Daughters of the Amazon and other small gangs. I thought this was a good read. I like it because it has a defined start and a defined end. It's 60 issues long. The author wasn't trying to keep the story going just to keep it going. It's long enough to tell the story. The story moves fast enough, too, to keep you interested, and the art is really good. It's Vertigo, so it does have a lot of language, nudity, and blood. Definitely not kid-friendly, in my opinion, but that's okay. You can still find it on Amazon. I'll have the links in the show notes at covertnerd.net. You can check it out and let me know what you think. It won some awards, and Brian K. Vaughan has written some other works that are very successful, like Saga and The Tigers of Baghdad. If you would like to be on the show, I would love to have your insight and comments. Send your questions and comments either in MP3 format or written to cn@covertnerd.net. That's the email. I'd love to hear from you. Please keep the audio to at least 2 minutes or less. Or on covertnerd.net, there's a link there for SpeakPipe, and you can speak directly through your phone, laptop, whatever, and leave a 90-second question, comment, or message. Our contest is still going on. Again, all you have to do to enter the drawing is simply email me, cn@covertnerd.net, put in the subject line, Mintworks, and then include your full name in the body. Or you can DM me on Instagram with Mintworks and your full name. Either method will get you an entry into the contest. Please, only one entry per person, and you must be 18 to enter. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podbean, or go to covertnerd.net, and you can find all the other apps that you can subscribe to. And when a new episode comes out, it will notify you immediately on your phone. If you like the show, please share it on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Also, leave a rating and review on iTunes. I would really appreciate it. If you do leave a 5-star rating, I will read it on the air. Again, I would really like some interaction from the audience about subjects you want to talk about, comments, questions. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.